I realized that I had a lot more to offer than just pen to paper, inking contracts, and ensuring that they were making logical decisions. Because truly there's so much more than that to what we offer.
Welcome back to the Full Out Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Mark Faris. Today we're interviewing Matthew Said Morley. He is in the Calgary, Canada market. He really interesting story here. He does 78 million in sales each and every year with one assistant. So he does on average about 100 transactions a year. His average sale price is about 800,000. Father of two, and really looking forward to the conversation here. Matthew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So Matthew, we were talking a little bit before the show started, and I'm standing up now versus sitting down my previous shows there. So it took me a couple of minutes to get going. And as we were talking there, you had mentioned, you're, pretty much an open book. And, we were kind of jamming back and forth that we've realized, where I realized anyways, was what I was saying is that there's no real secrets in the real estate industry. It's just straight up implementation. But I'm curious to hear a little bit more about your backstory and, what got you into real estate. Maybe you could start with that.
Yeah, totally. So like I would assume for many other real estate agents, this industry kind of fell into my lap. My plan was actually to become a local firefighter, and I was training and putting a lot of effort into, moving in that direction for a career path. I have a background of congenital heart-related issues. Had my first open heart surgery at the age of 4. And around the time that I was going through the process of applying for the Calgary Fire Department, an unrelated, unexpected aortic aneurysm appeared. And unfortunately, that put my whole life on a new trajectory. And so, in the process of trying to find myself, I decided to take my real estate course as a buffer, to just provide a source of income, to provide some stability, and also to buy me a bit of time until I figured out what I was going to do. And so that was really where things started for me was, I wouldn't say being forced into the industry, but using the industry as a bit of a crutch for me to create an income source and kind of create this new life path, that I wasn't expecting to have to take on. So.
Wow. It's interesting how heart or health related issues, they change your perspective on life. I've heard this before that, if you have your health, you have many goals. And if you don't have your health, you have one goal, right? To be healthy. Right. So real estate started more as, okay, so an extra item. When did you realize that this could be a real thing where you're like, okay, I'm going to be jumping into this full time?
Yeah. I mean, I hit the ground running. I put a lot of effort and energy into generating commissions, chasing sales. It probably took me about 5 years to realize that I could actually have an impact on my community. This was more of a career choice. And really, the direction that I wanted to go was community focused, relationship focused. And, from that day forward, everything changed. So, the first 5 years was probably really more experimental, provided a source of income, really didn't have an identity. I was only 23 years old when I got licensed. So, as I approached my 30s, I think a lot of things started to really fall into place in my life as a whole. And fortunately, finding my why and, some purpose, that gave me a ton of direction, and not only personally, but also, from a career perspective as well.
Okay. So how far into your career did you figure your why out? And maybe can you share are you open to sharing what that is for yourself?
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, my main focus is supporting, the community. And so what I did was I kind of unpacked all the reasons that I wanted to serve my community on the fire department, in a lot of indirect ways, obviously very different career choices. But essentially what resonated with me was having the ability to support my community in an industry that tends to be very monetary focused. So there were some services, some emotional support aspects, that I felt the industry was missing, that I was capable to implement, at a high level, to create more opportunity for me, to work with great individuals. So
Hmm. Okay, so serving the community, and so how many years in was that for you? That it was like there was a light bulb that went off, and was there extra, we'll say, energy that was infused into your career at that point? Where you're like, okay, was it a moment or was it kind of a gradual? And the reason I ask that is because motivation, or we'll just say we need stimulus to get up earlier, go work later, really dive in and make an impact. And so was it a gradual thing? And then how long into the career did you figure that out?
yeah, I think it was in the first, you know, well, it was in year 5 to 7 that those transitions really took place. And I think, lacking purpose was a big part of that. There's a big difference between, earning a living, and living with intention. And at the beginning, I was just earning a living. And, it gets old, I mean, and, when you're working 12, 14-hour days to just get a paycheck, it's a lot different than coming home and saying, I actually made a difference in this person's life, as small as, just showing up for someone can be, right? Answering a call, during a stressful situation related to, these massive transactions that people are going through. Um, so yeah, I realized that I had a lot more to offer than just pen to paper, inking contracts, and ensuring that they were making logical decisions. Because truly there's so much more than that to what we offer.
Yeah. Well, the different levels of like human needs that Tony Robbins talks about, he talks about contribution as being the highest. And so you've really tapped, I like that you've really tapped into that, because that's like a never ending game you can play. Like getting awards, for example, is good for a certain season. And then you get enough of them and you realize, hey, listen, there must be more, but contribution is like an ongoing thing. So that's interesting. About 5 years in. So maybe if we could backtrack a little bit, when you got into the business, how did you generate business? How did you generate? And that's a big question that a lot of agents have. It's like, okay, I'm in the business, I have my license. How do I, what kind of lead gen did you do, and how did you generate business when you first got into it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really great question, and I share this with a lot of agents in my office and guys that I mentor. Um, you know, I stuck to a plan truly since day one, which is, generating business through referral, contributing to a community, in the literal sense, friends and family and people that I have relationships with, business owners, trades, contractors. So extending that level of care and attention, to everyone, over the course of my career has truly just been the combination of discipline and the compound effect. So getting up each day, having a routine that, to be totally honest with you, hasn't changed in probably at least a decade. And a lot of these things that I incorporate into my business, do we elevate them every year? 100%. Do we tweak them every year? 100%. But the fundamentals of them are showing up every day, advocating for our clients, being there for them when they need us, irrelevant of, the, the challenges of timing and, the interruptions in our personal life, just showing up every day and being, sharing that human connection. Right. So,
Yeah. It seems so simple, right? Just show up every day. It's like I do that consistently, show up every day, right? I think that's where a lot of agents, they start maybe with that, or maybe they don't even start, but even the ones that do start, they start to get some success, but then they start to, okay, I'm going to take a day off here, a day off there. But I mean, just showing up every day and working and treating it as like a regular job in itself sets you so much further ahead of the competition. And that's just something you stuck with over the last like 18 years, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I mean, back to my point about mentoring agents, I share with them, especially people that are physically fit or active or have hobbies. If looking after your body is a priority, you don't just come and go as you please at the gym. And the mentality of working out in order to have the excuse to eat a certain way or behave a certain way is a little bit backwards. And I mean, it's the same for what we do in our industry. And so I get up every day and I go to the gym and I look after myself. And of course, there's times where, you know, life gets in the way. But, I'd say 95% of the time, I show up for myself the same way I show up for my clients and I show up in the industry. And so, those habits are what truly allow us to have that freedom, that success, that no matter what the economy is doing, the phone continues to ring. And sure, things get more difficult when we're experiencing higher levels of inventory or COVID or whatever the case is. But if we show up every day, people see that and they want a piece of that. They know that you're dependable. So
Yeah. That's really good. So you started with waking up. Can you take us through the rest of your routine? It sounds like it's been consistent, it's working for you. I mean, doing 100 transactions a year consistently. What is your daily routine that you do on a regular basis?
yeah, so I mean, I get up early. I wake up every day at 5. So for me, I was actually just speaking in Toronto at a Remax conference last fall, and I shared with a lot of the agents there. What if you woke up just 1 hour earlier? What would that effect have over the course of the year from a production standpoint? Whether that allowed you to meditate or go to the gym or follow up with clients or write handwritten cards, write in your gratitude journal. These are all things that I do. And so, first and foremost, waking up at 5 a.m. and having a longer amount of time through my day, gets me off on the right foot. I get to meditate. I go through a list of affirmations. I'm a very gratitude focused guy. I've had 3 open heart surgeries. My last one was 3 years ago. And so I don't take this life for granted, but I also want to squeeze every ounce of juice possible, every day. So yeah, get up early, have some time to meditate, hit the gym. I mean, there's all these motivational speakers that talk about, these crazy things that they do. I genuinely prefer to have a day that's organized this way. But going through those motions, going to the gym, having time to myself, trying to be in the office by about 8:39 in the morning, where we're having our conversation today, is my office in Calgary. I'm committed to being here 6 days a week, so I come in on the weekends as well. I have a routine where I consistently follow up with past conversations, even if they're light. I have a variety of rules, that I'll share with you through our conversation today. Just in respect to reaching out to people on social media, over text, phone call, email, refreshing, market analysis. But I mean, yeah, for me, it's just having that sense of organization, feeling a sense of routine and discipline, and never turning that off. Even if I take a day off, I still get up, go to the gym, try and meditate, do all those types of things because it becomes a lifestyle. It's not really a choice.
Yeah. Well, you have less energy that you're putting into it when you just wake up and do it like clockwork. It becomes automatic, and you're not having to decide every day, am I going to wake up or not? It's just something that you do. It's interesting when I'm on routine, waking up in a consistent basis, and I get my early routine in, and I get my daily disciplines in early. The whole day it compounds into much more productivity. I find the days that I'm off, it's easy to spiral at that point. So when I trace back all the days at the end, I'm like, oh, you know what? I was off this day. I was like, you know what? I didn't hit my morning routine. And I think that is such wisdom. In doing it consistently, it becomes easier and easier as you do it. Right. So 5 a.m. you're up, you're going through a number of different personal developments, gratitude, journaling. You're at the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock, in that range. and then you're making your calls, you're doing your follow-ups. And so do you, in the afternoon, is that your appointments, afternoons and evenings? Do you generally have kind of cutoff where you shut the store down, and do you go home for dinner? Can you take us through the back half of your day, what that would look like in a typical average day for you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I chose the office that I work out of for a number of reasons. One of them is, it's 8 minutes from home. I've got young kids. And so the benefit of that, to run home and have a meal and spend an hour or two with the kids, is emotionally recharging. You have kids, Mark, and so I know you get that. So even to just, on the busiest day, to say, hey, I'm going to pop home for 45 minutes, see the kids, recharge, have a meal, and then I'm back on the road. I mean, it's the greatest. It's the greatest thing ever. And so, my afternoon, evening routine is consumed with a lot of, running numbers for clients, following up, with existing properties that we have, searching MLS for, more unique properties that, some of our clients are struggling to find. And then typically from 5 o'clock on, that's when the showings start to happen. People are leaving work. They have the ability to visit properties, or do listing appointments. So, my days vary, but, doing over 100 transactions a year, I mean, there's no denying that, in the busy season, I'm working 7 days a week, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the ability that I have the opportunity, to take advantage of being successful, right? For me, it's a big mindset component. Not I don't have to do these things. I get to do these things. I get to wake up at 5 a.m. And I think when you start your day with that mentality, and again, I'm just speaking personally and very openly because I have challenges in life with my health. But if when I get up in the morning and my feet touch the ground, I can't help but smile. And I may be exhausted, I might be frustrated, from something the day before, but I allow that into to incorporate throughout my day. And so, yeah, my afternoons and evenings are probably like many other agents, but try and keep gratitude top of mind, and have just like a fulfilling day.
That's that's powerful. The surgeries, how did the last one go? Are you at this point? Are you back to 100% right now?
Yeah, so my last surgery was December 2021. So it was during COVID. There were challenges, related to COVID, unfortunately, that delayed that surgery. Um, I would consider that surgery, one of my most significant breakthrough years of my life. So that this is my fourth year that I will do over 100 transactions a year. Coincidentally, the year I had my third open heart surgery, was the first year that I, broke seven figures GCI. So, like what an interesting coincidence to go through, one of the most adverse, challenging times of my life, and find the silver lining. Dig in, be extra gritty, be extra relentless. Just do what I have to do to continue to thrive. So, yeah, but thanks for asking. Health wise, things are great.
Amazing. And it's such a great example for people to follow, agents to follow. The reality is even with open heart surgery, you can still do something amazing, spectacular. I mean, that's like, you're less than 1% of all the agents out there and from productivity. And so it takes what that really does when I look at that, and what the any listeners that are listening into that, it's like it takes all the excuses off the table, right? That's what that does, which is a really powerful perspective to, learn and take that your example there and say, hey, listen, whatever I'm going through right now, listen, it's not that bad. I can make it happen. And the fact that you get home and see your kids as well, it's an interesting thing. Matthew, I was at this conference and I remember this agent. She was a top producing agent and still is, Paula Mitchell, in the Toronto area. And she said to me, Mark, one thing I learned is that in this business, generally between 4 and 6, a lot of people are driving home from work and there's not a lot of appointments scheduled in around that time. They're getting ready for, dinner and whatnot. And she said, I didn't book appointments at that time, as a general rule. And she's like, I would always go home for dinner for that time. And so that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Cause I was working straight and I wasn't going home for dinner. And then I started implementing this whole thing of I didn't book appointments. And again, there's exceptions, but the rule is still there. And so I would go home and see the family. I'm the same as you. It's like you get the recharge, you go back, and then you head out after. And family, they get their cup filled. When you're intentional about it, you get your cup filled. And what was interesting, I rolled into this rule of this Parkinson's law is that you you fill the you take the amount of time that you give it, any sort of activity. So if you tell yourself it's going to be 4 hours to do, it'll take 4 hours. But if you take that same amount of work and say, hey, listen, I'm going to squeeze it and only give myself two, in general you can get it done in 2 hours. And so what that did for me, knowing that I was going to have to be home at a certain time, I would like push myself to get it done. And then it was like, okay, my next time after that is after dinner type thing. So it was interesting, I was able to keep the same pace by going home for dinner. And it was just I created hours by creating that kind of intensity in work schedule. So it sounds like you're doing something similar to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too. I almost feel, and you'd probably agree, I almost feel like when I go home and I get that recharge, I'm getting a whole new day. Like my energy level to go out and, meet these clients with an attitude of appreciation and happiness and excitement. Like I've got this refreshed mindset, because I not only fueled my body, by having a meal, but, I also got to see my kids. I had a little bit of a break. And so it's recharging, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can't lie, though, Matthew. I did have a number of days. I'd lay down on the couch for a few minutes. It's like, okay, I got the clock is coming. My appointment is coming up. I got to go. And that's where it was interesting. I would be like, 1, 2, 3, go. And I would get up. And then I later read this book, Mel Robbins, The 5 Second Rule, where she talks about counting down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just, going. But I found for me that what would happen is I'd get my dress clothes back on because I'd always just whenever I went home I'd get in my cash clothes, and many times you'd be coming back from listing appointments and your socks would be full of cat hair and dog hair and stuff from some of the houses change. And then but I always got my dress clothes back on. I'd go back out. But the song that would always get me pumped up is Rocky, Eye of the Tiger. And so I found that I had to get I had to lift myself up to get back in the state of the game, so to speak. But definitely by heading home and then going back out after, I totally understand what you're saying, but you feel like you have kind of another leg to go because you did recharge. But that, I don't know, there were days like that was, especially with like, it was dark, it was snowing, it was the dead of winter, right? So I'm not sure if you resonate with that from time to time. But it was a kind of a combo for me. Yeah. Okay. So lead gen, you're more focused on past clients, referrals, your Rolodex, so the trades. Is that still your primary focus on how you generate business for yourself with working with buyers and sellers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate and very proud to say that I don't do any traditional advertising. You'll never drive down the street and see a bus bench with my face on it. I don't do farming, community mail outs, anything like that. I've tried them in the past. I think because of the type of agent that I am and my personality, they never worked. I think my attitude was actually a big part of it too. I wasn't that invested in it. I was giving it a shot because that seemed like the logical route, and there's so many agents that are very successful in that. And so client relationships, are the biggest key to my success. And I regularly go out of my way to show my clients my gratitude because of that. Because I, I'd be doing a fraction of the volume I'm doing today, if those past clients, friends, family, didn't have the confidence in me to pass my name along and give me the opportunity to speak with these new individuals, right?
That's the most preferred way to do business as well. I mean, from a profitability standpoint, and also from a day to day, when you meet a client that's referral or repeat client, it's just more enjoyable as well. So that approach is definitely For the listeners out there, that's definitely the recommended approach for sure. You treat your clients well and they come back. Um,
I've always said that generating business can be a three-step process, which would be, meeting the individual, creating the opportunity, and then actually following through with the transaction. And if I can jump ahead to step three, which is listing the property and actually securing the business, that's the key for my model in order to do more volume. And so if I get distracted with trying to generate leads and inquiries, I have to earn this person's trust. I have to meet the individual. I've put a ton of work into this person, which is perfectly fine. But that's even before I've had the opportunity to put the for sale sign on the lawn, and then I actually have to go to work. So if I can jump straight to stage three, where I've got their trust, I've got their confidence to support them and advocate for them, and we just get to work right away, I can compound that much easier and more fluidly. And then I get the benefit of actually, working what we all want to do, which is, creating opportunities, finding those homes, actually transacting.
yeah, negotiating deals makes a lot of sense to me. So when you got to say referral, whether it's a buyer or seller, and you meet them for the first time. So do you have a set presentation? Is there anything you do when you first meet a client to really wow them?
Yeah, especially with listings. I have, you know, if I can be totally honest, I mean, it's a pretty rock star listing presentation book. Um, I had a listing presentation this morning before I, came on to have a conversation with you. And so, the book is very detailed. It's not a sales book. It's actually more of a snapshot as to who I am, why we do things the way that we do, the services that we offer that are different, compared to other agents. Um, and it's expensive. It's $20. It's a soft touch, high quality, thick page. And I leverage that book in meetings literally by sharing with them, this is an example of the caliber of quality that you can expect by hiring me, from me handing you this book. And that book alone, even just handing it to the client, has created a tremendous number of opportunities because it's a clear indicator, as to my commitment to the industry, my commitment to that client, individually. So
Mm. So that would be, was that your presentation that you would say go over with them in person and then leave with them as well? Or do you have like an iPad that you bring in as well? Or is that pretty much what you're going through in that presentation?
yeah, so if I use today as an example, do a tour of the house, take some notes. I never give them a valuation on the spot. That's one of my rule of thumbs. The reason for that, the genuine reason, but the reason I also share with the seller, is because their home deserves a lot more respect than for me to have created a figure based off of location, size, prior to actually understanding the qualities, the great aspects of that house. And then I spend about 15, 20 minutes going through the book, just summarizing aspects of it, and then I leave it behind. It's got QR codes on it where they can, go directly to my Instagram, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Google reviews. So, I mean, it's super user friendly, it's high quality, it's to the point. Yeah.
Full and it's shareable as well. It's like, hey, they have their friends and family coming over. It's like, oh, what, your realtor did this? Like, and it spells it out for them, which I think is powerful because a lot of times what happens is, a friend comes over and says, oh, you listed with that. Well, you should have listed with mine. It's like, well, take a look at what they're doing here. It gives them ammo to be able to say, back up their decision as to why they're listing with you, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I think, a big thing for me with client experience is how many extra little things can I incorporate into this journey that will just continue to make them feel important, make them feel that their experience was elevated and unique. I mean, there's no denying that there's a tremendous number of realtors. In Calgary, there's over 8,500. So it's like, why hire Matt over all these other guys? And I don't think it's one reason. I think I can collect a dozen of reasons. And some of them are as little as, when we list their property and drop the brochures off, we leave a custom candle on their countertop, right? Now it's branded, but it's branded discreetly and, classy. But, there's all these little things that we can do to make someone feel, you know, um, important, right?
Special. Yeah. Well, when you look at all the high-end hotels, it means the little things that, little chocolates, they remember your name, right? It's all in the detail. And, when I go to a restaurant, there's this nice restaurant down in Naples in Florida that I'll go to, and they actually keep notes on us. And so now when we walk in, they actually bring out, like, I don't know what it is. Like for me, I don't like table salt. I like, whether it's Himalayan or like sea salt. And I realized later on in life that actually that's healthy for you. It helps hydrate in the morning. It's one of the best things. Anyways, but with my food, I like having a little extra there. And so now when I walk in, they actually bring the separate salt, with the spoon for me. I'm like, oh, see, look at it. I was like, we have some friends come. It's like, hey, look what they're going to do. And, it's the little thing. It doesn't even cost them anything. And it's interesting. I befriended the owner and just a solid guy. And he was saying that 35%, he trained under Horst Schulze of the Ritz. And so he's the one that, ladies and gentlemen, created the whole ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. So it gave respect for all the employees there at the Ritz. But what he was saying is that 35% of the restaurant experience is based on the bread service and the water service. 35%. He actually had the metric. It was crazy. And so if your water is empty for too long, that's a bad experience. So he'd be hardcore. Like I just play a game, I drink, and I just see them coming over. It was just, you never get it empty. I didn't do that. I think I didn't play a game too long with that. Okay. I'm not like that. But that was interesting. I was watching them from a service standpoint, and then also with the bread on how fast they bring the bread service out as well. And so we can relate this exactly back to what you're talking about as well. Like that candle, for example, is an extra wow. It's unexpected. And I love that idea. And so that's where if you go right from start to finish, it's like, how can we do a little extra here? Take that same mindset. I think that's the stuff that people remember and they appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, if I can go a little further, people will always remember the way you make them feel, always. And so, this couple that I met with today, leave this listing book behind. Tomorrow, they're going to receive half a dozen fresh cookies that get delivered to their house with a handwritten note thanking them for the experience, just having met them. They haven't even hired me yet, but, we show a token of appreciation just for the opportunity. And then at the end of their sale, we drop off a bottle of Moet or Veuve, high quality champagne, not, Costco special, right? But, through the whole process, whether it's leaving the candles or sending cookies, the level of communication, the champagne at the end, a variety of different things that happen along the way, what's at the forefront for me is how can I leave a lasting impression where, they will remember this experience for years to come. And I think that's why I'm fortunate enough to have such a high retention rate, is because I'm happy to spend the money. When I look at branding, like for instance, we give our clients and referral partners branded Yetis. I've had a ton of agents in the office ask why I spend so much money. Like, why not just get these this alternative cup that's $5 a piece instead of 40. Well, because it doesn't make the person feel the same way. And so I'm hyper focused on ensuring that that experience that people have when I have the privilege of working with them leaves a lasting impression.
So, a couple questions with this, because this is a powerful conversation, and the way that I look at that spend is like that's your marketing and lead gen spend right there. You can go and spend it in Google and Facebook and all the rest of it, but if you just put it back into the right areas, to me, like that's wise investment. Now, with the cookies, for example, so you send the cookies before you even sign them up. So you do it the two-step listing process. So you go in, do you send the cookies in the middle of you coming back the second time, or do you send it after it's in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So that,
and
yeah,
that's
smart.
strategic. Sorry
Yeah.
to jump in there,
No,
but
it's
it's
smart.
intentional.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense that you send it in the middle. It's and that whole you've created and curated an experience of step by step. It's like the pre-call, the first meet, the cookies, the second meet, right? So that to me makes a lot of sense that you did because a lot of agents will say, I don't want to spend the money unless I know I'm going to get the business. But what you're doing is you're creating it and you're spending money in the right area to be able to elevate the experience. And I'm sure your conversion rates would go up, which will it's an investment. Which ties us to the Yeti. So the question here is, if you get a referral, it's an introduction to somebody and it doesn't transact, do you still send them a Yeti?
My so
Or do you have a process? Because there's always the question, right? You get a name and then it doesn't transact. And then do you do a small gift and then a big gift? And I'm curious on how you handle that.
Yeah. So again, I can only speak for myself, and some of the things I'm sharing with you will sound very cheesy, but they are genuine.
It's working though. It obviously is working. You're doing 100% referrals, 100 deals a year. Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
No, no. I mean, I live a life every day filled with gratitude, and so that is my compass. And if I am behaving with the sole purpose of showing appreciation and gratitude, it's not strategic. I don't have to think about it. So sending the cookies after the meeting because I just have a tremendous amount of appreciation that they even called me, then it's received for the same reason. If I strategize it and I say, okay, meeting two and then cookies to try and hook them, how many of those individuals are going to say, well, that's kind of convenient? Like, he's trying to send us the listing documents and here come, kind of a bribe, right? So, same with the Yetis. As soon as someone calls me and says, hey, Matt, I got a friend from Toronto and they're looking to move to Calgary, and we gave them your information and they're going to contact you, the next day, a couriered box goes out with some swag and a handwritten card saying, the fact that you just thought about me made my day. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Um, and the byproduct of that is that I feel good. And the byproduct of that is it opens the door for opportunity for future referrals because your genuine self is being shown, right? So there's zero downside, sure, $50 and then we don't transact. Well, I'll tell you right now that $50 is worth 100 times over because it's being received in the right way and it's going to create a ripple of opportunities that I'm sitting here today telling you, you know, we can't wrap our heads around the opportunities that are going to come when we behave in the right way. We treat people the way they deserve to be treated. So,
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Matthew. And this is something that people feel it if you're doing something to get something. And I think that's such wise counsel you gave. It's like, listen, at the end of the day, I'm going to be pouring in. And when I'm coming from that perspective, I think that's how it's felt. Versus like, okay, I'm going to send you something, but like I'm giving you something here, so I'm expecting. Can you send me a referral now? I'm going to give you something. Can you give me a referral, right? And so I think that makes a lot of sense to me, and it's got to be genuine as well. Like a good example I found is like you get the opinion of values, right? So sometimes people will ask you, hey, listen, I need a just an opinion and value. There are many agents out there that will say, hey, listen, we don't do those, go hire somebody. With us, we have this mindset of, listen, we're going to give in this, and so we'll go through and we treat that as a regular listing appointment. We'll go through the whole presentation. We'll show them, like, we understand you're not selling in the future. You may sell, you may know somebody. That being said, we're here and we want to show you exactly what it is that down the road, if you're thinking about selling that, what we do and how we'd sell your house for the most amount of money. It's like, really? You'll do that? It's like, yeah. I've spent like hours and hours with people knowing that they're not going to sell. But what's interesting, Matthew, is that years down the road, I can't tell you how many times I'd be getting phone calls back from those people, or they'd say, "Hey, you know that uh, my neighbor or my friend, you went over there and did the opinion of value, and they're like, they said you were awesome." And so it's like delivering the unexpected. It goes back to what you were saying earlier, right? And so that has been, you had said like 100-fold payback. Giving when people don't expect it is what separates and differentiates you. And so in those cases, it's like we'll give and we don't expect anything in return. And it comes back to you if you do it coming from the right place.
Well, I think it changes your attitude as well. I mean, you know, I enjoy giving. That's just, part of who I am. So every opportunity I have the ability to, um, acknowledge that, acknowledge people that are trying to, lift me up and create opportunities for me and are speaking my name, with kindness and love. I mean, it's good energy, right? So for me to be able to put that back out into the universe, I've never experienced a year where unexpected things have unexpected amounts of abundance have returned to me, because I'm trying to be a good person. I'm trying to show my gratitude towards others. So
That's great. All right. So, going over the communication side. So you're starting to work with the client. They call you back and say, "Okay, come list me," or "Hey, I want to start working with you on the buying side." During the process of either buying or selling a home, is there any sort of like regular communication cadence that you do with clients, or is there something that you do above and beyond to service them to make sure that the communication side of it is really strong?
yeah, I mean, from my experience, I'm not really selling them on anything until we're actually negotiating a deal. Or so I try and you know communicate at a very high level, but not, there's no tricks, there's no systems in place until there's a need for it. What we do is we have a group chat. We use WhatsApp. So we add our clients, myself and my client relations manager, Lauren. So it's the two of us and the clients. And, we have the ability to communicate consistently and in real time versus communicating via email. So for instance, if we have a listing, and a client wants to adjust a time, we can communicate that on a much more readily available basis. And then same with buyers. If I'm in a meeting, a buyer says, "Hey, this property came up. I want to view it tonight at 6 p.m." Lauren can go into my schedule, see if I have availability. She can pull up the listing, share details with them, and then I'm 2 or 3 steps ahead. By the time I get out of that meeting, everything's kind of in place. And so that makes that client feel heard and acknowledged, and that their time is equally as valuable as mine. And it streamlines communication, but from a security standpoint too, it allows us to log those communications when a file's closed. We don't have 5 different platforms of communication. So if there's ever a dispute, or the unfortunate reality that something's been miscommunicated or the ball's been dropped, we have that whole communication highlighted and in their folder for us to reference back in the future if there was ever an issue.
Super smart. And you find getting clients on WhatsApp, most people they'd easily be able to download the app and communicate that way.
Yeah, I'd say maybe 5% of the time there's a small hiccup. I mean, we laugh every once in a while. A client will text me directly outside of the group chat. Not the end of the world, right? But for the most part, it actually it executes at a really high level and makes, for all the reasons I shared with you. I mean, there's no downside.
Streamline. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I love how you have your assistant on and everybody's in the loop. It's kind of like your special communication app that is free for you guys, which and it's free too, which to me it helps overall. Most people are on that platform anyway, so that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any negotiation tips for the listeners when you're negotiating? Any advice for the listeners there?
Like on the buying side.
Yeah, whether it's on the buying or selling, whether you're buying or selling deals for clients, is there any sort of negotiation tips that you have for the listeners?
Yeah, I you know with my experience, typically with on the selling side, even before we've kind of gotten, we're at stage two or stage three, we've gone back and forth a few times. I tend to over educate my clients, share with them a variety of potential ways that the deal could go so that there's no surprises. I find that absorbs a lot of the anxiety and the kind of uncertainty of what could take place. So for instance, we get an offer today, and it's low. I can share with the seller, hey, this could go one of three different ways. They could be testing the waters. They may not be financially capable of spending more money. And so I find that, when we take the time to explain everything as opposed to just the situation that we're in today, it creates a fair amount of comfort, for the seller. And then, the same with the buyer. If a buyer's coming in with a lowball offer, or we're competing with multiple offers, give it to them straight. Tell them, like, our chances of this based off of what you're comfortable spending, could potentially have a low probability of success. But reassuring them at the same time, more listings are coming to market. You're looking at an area that generally has X number of listings coming on the market at a time. So I think having a sense of confidence, having a good understanding of the market. But no, I don't think they're necessarily, tips or tricks. I think they're more, just executing a plan and being comfortable in what we're doing day by day.
Well, I love it. I mean, that guidance in itself is to me a major nugget for the listeners out there, that you are not just an order taker, you are guiding them along the way. And I think that's where a lot of agents fall short, is when there is a counter offer and maybe it's low, or a low offer comes in. It's like you're educating them, saying, "Hey, listen, this is how it could be," and you're telling them on how they should feel, and you're advising them. And I think, it's very similar to going into a restaurant. Like, there's the order taker, server, what do you want? Okay, give it to me. Like, I'll take that. And then there's another one that's like, hey, listen, like, they're like full out, right? They're passionate, they're engaged, and they're advising me on, hey, listen, these are like the top two that people come in, and this is why. And it's like, it gets me really excited. And I think that's a major differentiator. And you just shared a really great example of, it's like, hey, listen, this is how offer came in, and this is how they might be thinking, and it totally changed their perspective. And I would imagine, and what I've seen, when you do that, you get a much better result, because then they don't close down saying, oh, they've insulted me and I'm not going to negotiate anymore, because it's hard to open up that door again.
Totally. I mean, from my experience, it creates more opportunity. It solidifies, the relationship that you have with them as a guide, as an ally. It brings their guard down, and then maybe you actually strike a deal that you wouldn't have because you've taken that extra time to walk them through it. I'm really hands on, and everyone's not necessarily the same way. But for me, it's worked really well, and it's allowed me to, to continue to do high volume.
Love it. Do you do anything else for referrals? Do you do any events? Is there anything else that you do to kind of take it to the next level, to get to that level that you're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, we host a variety of events. I have Flame season tickets. I have 4 seats. I spontaneous send clients to hockey games on a regular basis. We started a new thing this year, which I'm happy to share with you. I'm actually really excited and proud of it. Anytime a client sends us a referral, we have a curated dining experience with a local restaurant. A friend of mine, Chef Mike, owns a restaurant called Pat and Betty's. We typed out this really heartfelt and thoughtful letter as a place setting when they come to this experience. They have a 5-course meal. They're presented with champagne. They're treated like kings. And so when they send us a referral, I get the privilege of sending them for this really nice culinary experience. The cost on it's about $275 for two people. So, whatever that is, in half per person. But the response where people are sending me photos and videos and calling me and saying, we haven't had a date night in 6 months, and because of this this, gracious offering that you've given us. Like we had this incredible experience. And I mean, Mark, like I'm a cheesy guy. Like it's so heartwarming, to not only like continue to thrive in something I'm so passionate about, but then to be able to extend my gratitude and share this, you know, uh, very intentional gift. But it leaves a lasting impression. It's not, hey, here's a gift card to the keg, right? Which could be the equivalent amount. And so everything that I try and do intentionally and very thoughtfully. Um, and I mean, the results speak for themselves. So
It's gold. It's really gold. You're creating experiences. They're going to be sharing that on social media. It's the best kind of advertising you can get. And so, are you doing the Yeti and that on a on an ongoing, every time basis, or is it it's a rotation for this dinner?
So the Yetis go in housewarming gifts in addition to a variety of other stuff. So I call it a swag box. So there's a swag box that goes to a referring agent, and then there's a swag box that goes with their personalized housewarming gift at closing. So the Yetis go to realtors, and the same Yetis go to the clients as part of their housewarming gift. Housewarming gifts are individually purchased for each person based off of their tastes and stage in life and things like that. But yeah, I give out probably about 500 Yetis a year. So I mean, you could do the math on that. It's quite substantial, but that's what we do. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, it makes an impact than if you get a no name. Like when you got Yeti out there, and like we're big fans of them as well. It's like the people know how much they are. So it's a much bigger statement by doing that than going kind of the cheapo way. So it says a lot about your brand too, right? So
and we do custom dog bowls. Like we do all this. Like I'm a big Yeti fan, so we do elevated Yeti gifts incorporated with our housewarming gifts. So if they've got kids or they've got pets, we add a couple of kid Yetis or a couple pet branded Yetis that have the dog's names etched in them. Because again, there's brand recognition, and it's a thoughtful act, right? So
all right. So just changing the topic a little bit here, getting into the investing side of it, Matthew. What advice would you have for an investor that comes to you and says, "Hey, I'd like to invest in real estate"? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the market, and do you think real estate investing is a good place to park money in today's market?
yeah, totally. So I have a variety of investor clients as well as families, first time buyers, retirees, all that kind of stuff. I mean, the biggest thing, I try and elevate the level of our communication and education, no matter what type of client we're working with. So when it comes to investors, understanding the stage of investment they're at, the number of investment properties they've had in the past, their understanding of the financial structure. So being aligned with great mortgage brokers, contractors, um, property management companies, and so I have to be in alignment with all these partners to ensure that they execute at the same high level as we do. And
Yeah.
so a lot of it is really just hand holding. Of course, with more experienced investors, there's a lot less of that. And then, comes into play having a keener eye for opportunity, understanding, the financial side of real estate, what it costs to renovate a home. The biggest thing that I would encourage, younger agents to do is follow the home inspector around in other opportunities, have conversations with contractors, do your own research online to become a pro in understanding what a roof costs, what new windows cost. Not only does that allow you to be, great at what you do, it also allows you to fast track through processes where you might be writing offers on properties where that individual actually can't afford the home renovations on that project, and you could have identified that lack or that inability to transact on that property by knowing, hey, the windows in here are original and they're going to be 40 grand to replace. The furnace is toast and that's 6,500 bucks. The roof's going to be 12 grand. That crack in the foundation is going to be 3,500. So I think the more knowledge we have, the more power we have, and not just purely for the purpose of transacting, for the purpose of protecting our time, for the purpose of being professional and protecting our clients, from going through frustrating and time-consuming scenarios. And so, I think those are expectations that we should have of ourselves in order to compete at the highest level possible.
Mm, that's great. Can an investor cash flow properties in Calgary today? If they were to buy, say, a single family home, will they carry itself with more in the rental income than the expenses?
Yeah, I'd say 80% of the time, by the end of 2024, the answer was yes. Going into 2025, we are noticing a softening rental market. And so I'd say probably more like 60% of the time, there's the opportunity to cash flow. As you're well aware, and most of these people would be aware, down payment is going to be a large component of that. Secondary suites, also a big aspect, generating multiple sources of revenue. So, finding a bungalow that has, the opportunity for a basement suite, and then potentially in a neighborhood that a garage, would be, rentable as well for, a mechanic or as a hobbyist. So creating three financial sources from one revenue property. So sourcing all those types of things and just having the knowledge that, hey, this area would allow for us to separate this individual property into three revenue sources. So yeah, I mean, it's complex, but I mean, there's definitely still a ton of opportunities here for that.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, we're seeing that in Ontario, investors either going down south or out west in Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary are two hotspots right now. So I think for the listeners out there, it's like when you have an investor or a client that's thinking about buying, you have a couple of other alternatives because in Ontario, Matthew, it's very difficult to find cash flowing properties, even like duplexes or it's more difficult. You have to go in and maybe buy a corner lot, you sever the lot, and then you put a couple triplexes on. Like you got to play that game versus just buying a single family. It's just a little less cumbersome for the busy entrepreneur investor out there that they're busy doing other things. They just want to buy it and rent it and have less headache, so to speak. So for listeners out there, Matthew would be a great guy to call from the Calgary market. So
There was about 15 buyers last year that purchased with the minimum down payment that actually were breaking even or cash flowing. So, depending on the scenario, there are opportunities where people are putting as little as 5 or 10% down. Now they're buying them in a family member's name or, as a second, personal residence that, they eventually convert into a rental property. That's how they're getting around, the down payment structure. But, you don't need to put 20 or 30% down in order to see the benefits of financial opportunities, in revenue homes. So.
yeah, no, it's powerful. And working with an agent that understands that can really help guide you. Again, underlying the word guide versus order taking. Because if you go to an agent and say, I'm thinking about buying investment property, but they don't have experience navigating through from the lending, getting the right mortgage contacts, the right, inspectors, trades, like the Rolodex is what I call it. When you work with an agent that has a Rolodex and then has the knowledge to be able to guide you through and say, hey, listen, this is where I would buy. This is much better resale. There's more upside. This is already trending ahead. This is a path of progress where the city's growing this way. This is like the new hotspot that just hasn't quite hit yet. That is worth its weight in gold. Not only that, the Rolodex, you get in and you need trades, you need contacts, especially if you're coming in from out of province. Having the right agent there with the experience is worth its weight in gold. So I'm glad we spoke a little bit about this, Matthew. All right, Matthew, ready for rapid fire? We got 3 quick questions and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right on. So first question, what's your favorite book that's made the biggest impact in your career?
So, I had to give this quite a bit of thought, and I feel like to your listeners, they have a good sense of the type of person I am, just based sharing some of my stories, from a personal side. But my answer is "Can't Hurt Me" by David Goggins. That is, a podcast kind of hybrid audiobook. I'm not sure if you've listened to it. David Goggins is an absolute savage. He's been through a ton of adversity. He's a relentless individual and super inspiring. And I listened to his book as a series of motivational books that I listened to just before my third open heart surgery. And I mean, it resonated with me and it still does today. So, yeah.
The biggest takeaway I took from him was like, when you think you're done, you got like 60% left in the tank. It's like you're not even close to 100. It's like, oh, so powerful, and that's cool to know. Right before open heart surgery, I could imagine how much, that potentially could have changed, the whole way that it rolled out. Thanks for sharing. I think that's something that in this business they can be. It's it's simple. It's not easy, right? And so that yeah, great book. Thanks for sharing that. All right, second question, 3 words that people that know you best would describe you as.
Yeah, another tricky one. So I'm giving it some thought. Relentless is definitely a word I use a lot. I don't give up easily. Another thing is driven. The drive I have, to make a change in this world, to be the best version of myself, to be an incredible dad, best partner, look after my health. I've got a lot of drive. And I think the third one would be passionate. I'm passionate about everything I do. I give it 100%. So yeah, relentless, driven, passionate.
Yeah, I think you nailed it from the conversation I've had with you. So uh, that's that's perfect. And final question here, Matthew, what's the final advice that you have for the listeners? For the agents out there that, let's just say, maybe they're in a rut and they want to take their business to the next level, or they're feeling stuck and they want to take their business to the next level. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah. So one of my first, YouTube, real estate related YouTube videos I watched was Simon Sinek's Start With Why. And I think if we have the ability and the courage to be honest with ourselves, we can dig deep and identify, a lot of, really true things about who we are and why we do things. And for me, a big thing that I remind myself of is, I'm not here for the transaction. I'm here to support people. I'm here to give back. Of course, I have to create a future for my family, and that's a piece of that. But if I show up for others and I do things the right way, things always fall into place. So I think having purpose and understanding why we do things the way we do, in our business, is the best way to stay on track, is the best way to continue to thrive, and it's the best way to create a ripple and make a change in the world. So,
Yeah, powerful. Okay. So, agents that are out there, maybe they'd like to refer business to you, whether they're buyers and sellers in the Calgary market, or we'll just say maybe the agents, they really like the way that you've been speaking. I know you do a lot of mentoring and leadership. What's the best way they can reach out to you?
yeah, my Instagram handle is Calgary Homes, no hyphen, no anything, just straight Calgary Homes. So people are always welcome to DM me, through that platform, or they can check me out at MatthewSaidMorley.com. My email address and cell phone number are on there as well. Always open to collaborate, always open to have great conversations like we did today, Mark. So I'm open to that. And yeah, I mean, I just really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, it was very enjoyable for me as well, Matthew. I got a lot from it. I appreciate you as a human being, what you've been through and what you've overcome, and I think whatever you've done to date is just the beginning, and there's some big things ahead of you. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, thanks for that, Mark.
Right on. Well, thanks for listening to the Full Out Real Estate Agent. Really appreciate you guys. If you enjoyed the show, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel where we're building a community of full out real estate agents. Love you guys. Have a great day.